Good evening. I'll call this meeting to order. I will ask council members to turn on their cameras now. Okay, where's Todd? Thank you. This special meeting of Woodstock City Council has been called for the purpose of consideration of the 2022 revenue budget. I will be chairing the meeting as Mayor Birch has requested I assume the chair duties until further notice. I have no further information from him at this time, but I look forward to working with council and staff through the budget deliberation process. The meeting is for information and discussion purposes only. No action will be taken as the revenue budget approval is scheduled for the regular meeting of the council on March the 17th, 2022. This meeting is being held electronically in accordance with Section 238, subsection 3.3 of the Municipal Act and Section 16.6.24 of the City of Woodstock Procedure Bylaw. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube channel, and a recording of this meeting will also be posted on the city's website following the meeting. An agenda of the meeting can be found on the agendas, meetings, and minutes page of the city's website. Councilors will be raising their hands in view of their webcam when requesting to speak. If a member of council is disconnected or having technical difficulties, we will take a recess in order to attempt to rectify the issue. If technical difficulties exist that prevent the meeting from continuing, the meeting will be adjourned and reconvened at a later time. If a councilor needs to leave the meeting at any time, they are requested to inform the clerk. Are there any disclosures of conflict of interest? Hearing none. Each department head will be making a presentation in the order outlined on the agenda. We will go through the budget booklet page by page, and council will be provided the opportunity to ask questions of staff. And our first one up is Peter Epler. And Peter is on the Heritage, he's the chair of the Heritage Advisory Committee. And this committee's, all committee reports are on page 108 to 109. Peter, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilors, good evening. Woodstock Heritage Advisory Committee appreciates the opportunity to speak to you about a request for addition to budget for the 2022 year. The City of Woodstock has a distinct and distinguished heritage character. This has and continues to offer the city and its citizens unique opportunities for the preservation of institutional and private buildings. While the success of the integration and reinvigoration of our public institutions puts Woodstock on the heritage map, there is a distinct recurring pattern of significant private dwellings being lost. Each of these puts a tear in the fabric that makes up Woodstock's past. The most recent reminder of this is the imminent loss of the oldest house in Woodstock, the 200-year-old Perry homestead at 130 Finkel Street. It calls us to question what more can be done to prevent such loss in the future. If the measures that currently exist to protect a designated heritage building can allow for it to be neglected and end up in such a state that it has been ordered to be demolished, the current protections are a failure. The outcry of the citizenry for the imminent loss have been heard, echoing again from the past at the times when Altador and the Venestart family homes were demolished. It is time for us to do something to try to prevent this from happening again in the future. It is a large task at hand, but one that many municipalities across the province have already faced and surmounted. Many examples and paths are already laid ahead of us. The Woodstock Heritage Advisory Committee recognizes that this will be a process that will take time, but now is the time to start. We need to choose our path together and make our way into the future, holding close and protecting our heritage. The Woodstock Heritage Advisory Committee is requesting from Council additional funds of up to $10,000 to retain a heritage consultant to begin the initial phase of this process. The preliminary scope of this phase of work would be an analysis of Woodstock's current heritage bylaws and preparation of a report. More specifically, the objective of this project is threefold: determine where Woodstock's current heritage bylaws sit within the current provincial framework, provide a comparison between Woodstock's current state and that of comparable lower tier municipalities, provide guidance and recommendations for next steps to update Woodstock's heritage bylaws to bring them in line with current best practices and set them up for future updates. Upon approval of additional funds, an RFP will be drafted, which will further outline the above objectives and provide more defined final scope. Once completed, it will be submitted for tender following standard protocol. The Woodstock Heritage Advisory Committee will review the received proposals and select the successful bid. Once the consultant has been selected, it will be expected that the work is completed within 3 to 6 months of the project award. Once the draft report has been completed by the consultant, the report will be reviewed by the Woodstock Heritage Advisory Committee for edits. A final version will be completed and submitted along with recommendations from the Woodstock Heritage Advisory Committee to Council for consideration. I appreciate your time this evening and would be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions to Peter? Thank you, Peter, for your presentation. It will deal with pages 108 to 109. Do you have any questions? Council have any questions on those? Councillor Schadenberg?
Yeah, maybe Chair, just a statement. One thing that I've been a member of for a long time, and Jerry Accioni is also a member of it right now, our councillor, is the Recreation Advisory Committee. And with COVID, we've certainly been tackling doing a rec and leisure fair again this year, which became such a good tradition in the city of Woodstock for 12 or 13 years. But because of COVID, it's been difficult to sort of organize and set a date for it for this year. So on behalf of that advisory committee, I just want to say that the money is still in the budget to do one this year, if and when it can occur.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. I'll move on to Karen Houston from the museum, pages 72 to 74.
Yes, let me just. All right, can everyone see it?
Yes.
Excellent. There we go. All right. Yes, so I am indeed looking at pages 72 to 74, but I'm also looking at 82. That is the Market Center Theater as well. It's only one page, so that should be fairly easy. Just before I start, I did want to highlight that, yes, 2021 was very difficult for rec and for culture. We were actually closed for half of the year, and that's not good. And it was actually worse than what it was in 2020. That year, we were actually open to the public for 8 months. So it's been very hard for looking at 2022 to try to figure out how much of this is a COVID budget and how much of this is going to be life as normal, and to plan for those things has been very difficult, but here we go. The things that went well in 2021, obviously, if we're closed half of the time, had to be things that were happening online, virtual programming, things of that nature. So some of the things that went really well was the launch of our database on the website. So it's cloud-based, it's not on any of our servers here. And we actually were able to do quite a lot of that because we weren't focused on other programming. We also figured out how to, when we did programming about birdhouses, we could actually sell them online, give them out at the door to people who purchase them. How do you actually edit video? What kind of programs do you need to do those things? The continuation of the COVID stories and just outright fundraising. Right, there we go. What did continue as normal was the collection of artifacts here at the museum. That's roughly the same number as are offered every year, and we accepted 256 of them. You see a wonderful example on the screen there. This, of course, is from the Legion, one of their old banners. We're very happy to have that here at the museum. And it's great because with the cloud collection portal that we have now, the public can see them as soon as we get them up. The portal was started in April, Between April and the end of the year, we had, which you see there, 6,786 unique hits just to the page that deals with the collection. So that's all of the researchers out there. So this was really a huge deal for our staff this year because they were migrating not just the museum's collection database. They were also taking the Heritage Committee's property database, the military service, so the Oxford-owned database that we have of people who've served in that regiment. The Vernon business directories, we had all of those digital and combined all of them. And then we had to start the process of actually cross-linking them. So what you'll see on the screen are the actual, oh, I don't have a cursor. You'll see the different kinds of, you have properties, you have counselors. So we have a collection of anybody who's served on council, anyone who is mayor. You can hit something like Bernadette Smith, for instance, and you can see that we have photos of her in the collection, but you can also see, you know, certain documents that she signed when she was mayor. You can see what house that she lived at from the Heritage Property Database. So all of these things are now combined. So you're not just getting one piece of the puzzle, it's a much, much larger whole. We also used the new database, the actual platform that it provides. It does exhibits in a timeline fashion. So we used it to actually create a number of virtual exhibits as well. This year, it was the Joe Boyle, the Zora Mighty Men of Zora, and then the Marshals. So looking at Black history in the community as well. And this proved to be very successful. This is the part that was a big learning curve. We actually were successful in getting a number of COVID related grants. One of them was digital technology, and we're successful in getting some lights, photo lights and stands and editing, you know, different packages and those sorts of things. So we actually figured out how to do in-house tours of the different galleries. If people couldn't come see us, we'd go see them. Also with Heritage Week, we actually looked at our artifacts. So we have a local gentleman's tool bench and his tools, and we directly related it to the Heritage Property Database, and one of the properties that are in it that they built. So we were able to kind of take all of this. You see Carrie there, she actually created biking and walking tours and would take people around, or they could just go by themselves if that's what they were comfortable with. But again, trying to figure out how to engage with the public. We did do two in-person exhibits here in the museum. We had planned to do more. We were closed, and so just decided, well, the brick to brick, looking at heritage architecture, we'll just leave it up for longer. And once it was finished its run, we now have it, you can see it in the photo, going up our stairwell. So that way we get to see it longer. We also had, at the end of the year, the Crossroads, the Grand National Fiber Art exhibit, wonderfully successful. That had been planned to be at the art gallery. Again, with COVID, things changed, and we were very, very happy to have it here at the museum. It was really, really successful. Again, with the brick to brick, we were trying to figure out some way to interact with the public. We were closed. How do we do this? Well, we decided that we were going to teach kids what are the bases of construction. It's the same for a birdhouse as it is with a house, basic form. So we basically made the basic kit and sold them online. It was hugely successful. We thought we would maybe sell 200. We sold over 400. And it's basically sold out. I think we have 3 in the closet somewhere, but basically it was a very successful fundraising. Escape rooms, something we have done for a long time. And it worked really well because, again, it's small groups. That has been the most affected thing, is when you look at the numbers for the museum being open for 6 months, but no education, no events. And so overall, I can tell you that there were just under 8,000 people that came through the museum, and those are just people to look at the exhibits. And seeing as normally we get 16 to 18,000 normally to look at the visit the exhibits, it makes sense. Even in COVID, we did fairly well. The escape rooms were also a hit last year. The vintage Christmas cards, we'll be doing them again next year. This worked really well. You'll see the photo there where we're at the Christmas art market that was right beside Museum Square. We sold basically the last of the birdhouse kits that you see there and the sets of cards. So again, something that we could sell online, give out at the door if we needed, if we were closed yet again, and it worked well. So the projects for this year, right now we have Doug Simon's exhibit and the reprinting of his book. You can buy copies here. We have written another map grant. I got one last year. That one was COVID related. This one is as well. This is looking at the history that we've taken of people's COVID stories, their photos, their art, their masks, anything that they felt like sending to us. And it's actually talking about how to sort of mark the end of this. And I'm really hoping that's true. And by the end of this year, that's something we can celebrate. We are going to also be working on an education plan. We're aware that for the past 2 years, education and school groups aren't something that have been coming. And so we're looking at how do we do a hybrid of the virtual, but also wanting some in-person, hopefully by the end of the year, highlighting civics and the actual history of City Hall itself, the whole idea of democracy and the smallest form of it, and how does that work in today's world. We are also celebrating and starting to ramp up for next year. It is the museum's 75th birthday in this building. And we're looking at how that happened, working with the Historical Society. And then in 2026, it's a 75th anniversary of Bernadette Smith, the first elected female mayor in Canada. I know that in Ottawa, but she was appointed, she was not voted. The fact is the people in Woodstock chose her, and that was in 51, and we think that that is significant, and we definitely want to highlight that. And then lastly, the Market Center, I can report they will be, the Little Theater is returning March the 1st. They're hoping to have performances in April, and we already have a few rentals that are going in. So when I'm looking at the budget and the lines, both for the Market Center and for the museum, I am basically going on historic precedents and hoping for the best, but I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Karen, for your presentation. And are there any questions on page 72 or 73? Councillor Accioni.
Yeah, thank you through the chair to Karen. The only real thing here that kind of jumped out a little bit was the advertising and conferences on page 73. Is there some things planned? I'm going to guess just an increase, or was that just going back to normal values, not COVID related?
The question, yes, these are the typical numbers by and large. Now, the advertising is going up slightly. Often I use a seniors grant. They allow you to use portions of it for advertising. This year, there is no scheduled seniors grant. So this is to really advertise, like I said, with education, with our programs, trying to get the word out again. We're open, we're looking to do this. And it has to come from that line, due to the fact I don't have another grant to take it from.
Okay, no, thank you.
Thank you. Karen, could you just tell me what page the Market Center budget is on?
That is on 82.
On 82, okay. So if you wish to turn to 82, and are there any questions on that page? Councillor Shatner?
Yeah, from the chair through to Karen, I guess back on page 72, and it's another question about the grants. This MAP grant, you received $20,000 in 2021, and it's going to be boosted to $54,000 in 2022. Is that something you had applied for? Is that something that's granted for some reason?
through to the question, yes, this is when I was talking about the COVID relief. MAP stands for Museum Assistance Program, and it's normally for things like traveling exhibits or things of that nature, but they knew this was global, not just national. And so a lot of museums did actually get this grant. And it was based on just what we had said. And part of it is the COVID stories as well. So that whole thing as well, yes.
Okay, and we'll go on to page 82. Are there any questions on that page? Okay. So we'll move on to economic development, which is on page 87 and 89. Go ahead, Lynn.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to try my screen sharing capabilities here. So let's see how this goes. Can anybody see it? Sorry, can everybody see my presentation or no?
Yes.
I certainly can, Lynn, yes.
There.
Okay, that's a good sign. So in terms of the budget presentation for 2022, just like to talk a little bit about what our department does. We're a small department, obviously, but we have a big impact in terms of community development. So what I would call kind of the main elements of the things that we do are the business attraction side of things. So those are largely the landing of new companies to the community, business retention, which largely means working with existing companies to expand within the community. And sometimes that involves finding sites. In some cases, it does actually involve the acquisition of lands from the city when we have them. External marketing of the city to international investors, industrial realtors, that sort of thing. Something we've always done, probably not to the extent that we did in the past year, was film location promotion and support. And as I think as council's aware, with Lock and Key this past year, it gave us a real kind of opportunity to see what the city is capable of. I mean, we got a lot of accolades from the production staff who were very impressed with what the city was able to deliver, some cases in very short order. But anyways, we're looking at having a more defined plan in terms of going after some of those opportunities. Municipal land sales, of course, we deal with. CIP management, I would say that's largely Brad who handles that. He's been very successful in terms of bringing a number of reports to council for support. Downtown development in general, the Small Business Enterprise Center, and I know Sean McNamara is speaking later, so I won't steal any of his thunder, and physician recruitment, which of course Christy will speak after me, so she'll give a little bit of background as to what she does. So in terms of our budget, this just kind of gives at a quick glance how we report through CAO to council, but it gives a quick line item of the various elements of the economic development department and a little bit more detail in terms of our investment attraction, who we go after, what sort of tools we use to meet investors, that sort of thing. The downtown, the various things, CIP, streetscape master plan, that sort of thing. And then other is that one that always seems to fall under the other duties as assigned in many cases. So it's the land development, doctor recruitment, which we've taken on, other city real estate properties, sometimes laneway sales, that sort of thing, which can be very challenging for small sales. The film location I've mentioned, and of course, liaison with businesses. So in terms of what we do, we have a small budget by comparison to our competitors. And our competitors, everybody from the communities of, say, Stratford, St. Thomas, which are similar in size, but we're also competing for investment with the Mississaugas and the Torontons of the world. So to try and get on a relatively equal footing, we utilize a lot of partnerships. So I think council is aware of our involvement with the Oxford Connection, which is basically the EDOs at the Oxford County level. So it's the development officers from Ingersoll, Tillsonburg, Woodstock, and the Rural Oxford Economic Development Corporation. And then, of course, SOMA, which is a little larger, which is 6 communities, and we partner together to do international trade events in particular. trade shows, foreign missions, welcoming delegations coming from other countries to our area. Those are the sorts of things that SOMA does. And then SOMA belongs to the food cluster, the Ontario Manufacturing Communities Alliance, and the Ontario Real Estate Alliance. So that's actually some larger groups, but SOMA belongs to them, so the city of Woodstock specifically doesn't have to. So one of the benefits in terms of being involved with SOMA is you'll see in our budget, or you won't see in our budget actually, there's no dollars in the budget for trade show expenses, consultant expenses, that sort of thing. That's all picked up by SOMA. So in terms of major activities in 2021, even though COVID was on, we were a very busy department. Inquiries were through the roof, continue to be through the roof, and there's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of it has to do with industrial real estate opportunities are getting limited in larger centers, so they're looking further afield, and Woodstock pops up on their list a lot more. So we continue to work with existing companies to expand. So the aftercare projects that we do with local companies, we belong to the chamber, BIA, those sorts of organization, again, just to be out there, let people know what we do, that we're available to help businesses if there are opportunities. Because of our international ties, we continue to work with the Korean Chamber, the Japanese Chamber, German Chamber, other chambers if there are other opportunities as well. We had recently an opportunity through the Scottish Chamber to do some stuff as well. So there's always opportunities out there. In terms of the department last year, very successful in terms of finding dollars. The SOMA organization was able to secure about $33,000 in funding from the federal government. The city was successful through Main Street, and I know Brad brought some details to council for $70,000. And the Small Business Center last year secured a $350,000 grant to carry out the At Your Crossroad program. So we're working through that, and we're getting through the final throes of that now. So that's taken up a lot of time, certainly for Sean and his office, and Brad's been involved with some of the reporting. So it's taken some time. We've administered the community improvement plan, which I mentioned that Brad's largely on top of. We're leading the streetscape master plan. So there's been a lot of activity that's gone on that, a lot of public consultation. And I think there's close to 700 people responded to our survey with respect to their comments on the downtown. So a very good response. So it means that people are pretty passionate about their core and what they want to see. So happy to see those kind of numbers. We rented the PUC building last year for the election. We did an online job fair, which was an interesting process. We had about 35 companies across the county with about 700 positions trying to promote those opportunities to people largely outside the community. It was all done online. And I was the chair of that group, and it was a bit of an eye-opener for me because my technology is probably a little bit weak, but it was a very good event. We had close to 1,000 people turn out, so happy to help local companies secure labor. And we sold about $3.25 million in industrial land last year, which was about 20 acres. We're working through the process to sell 760 Juliana Drive, the former golf course clubhouse on Juliana. We've been showing the market building to prospective tenants, not having a lot of success. And I think Mr. Courier mentions that in his report, but we've had a lot of people looking for small scale space, but not something that really affords itself to the entire space that we have available. And we did our first live trade show. So hearkening to some of Karen's comments, it's difficult with COVID to kind of project where you're going to go, but it certainly seems like in the development business that things are coming back in terms of live events. So that's good to see. We continue to market the Allier Farm, obviously. The last time I checked, we had a spreadsheet that was probably about 50 people who were interested. We're probably going to have about a dozen properties to sell there. And the demand, we may get about 90 acres to sell. The demand currently exceeds well over 600 acres. So we're going to have some opportunities for choice. And we've initiated the phase 1, phase 2 environmental audit of the former PUC building on Graham Street. So projects for 22, some of the same things. We're going to be probably doing more live trade shows, which, as I mentioned, is a little bit new. But we have a few events coming up. We're not really looking at anything that's international at this point because there's just right now a few too many unknowns with respect to the border. but certainly Ontario, Quebec activities seem to be very much in full swing. We're going to continue working on trying to sell the former PUC building and the clubhouse on Juliana. And we're going to put together a bit of a plan, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, with respect to film attraction. So that's going to be a little more involved. We're going to do some advertising. We're going to try and talk to some more site location consultants in terms of those who handle film locations. So there's some opportunities there. And of course, we're going to continue working on the downtown development plan. The one thing that's being new that's proposed for our budget is a downtown coordinator. And this, in our opinion, is very much in need. Staff are, there's a lot of activities in our downtown. Of course, our downtown has a number of challenges, but maybe also some opportunities. And that's the way we're looking at this, that we need somebody in place who's devoted to promoting the downtown, both from a marketing standpoint, but also dealing with some of the real estate options. When we do get inquiries, people are asking for, say, let's say it's 1,500 square feet, that sort of thing. We quite often have to scramble to pull together an inventory. We'd like to be a little bit more proactive and have something pulled together so we're better able to respond to inquiries. So basically, we're looking at a year one budget impact of about $47,000 and going up to about $94,000 in 2023. One of the things that I know Mr. Hammond would be happy about is we're hoping that this person will be able to take over some of the CIP activities, because I know that's taking a lot of Brad's time. So that's there's a lot of different things we're looking at in terms of that specific position. In terms of the budget, these are just some of the various line items. So land sales is probably the biggest one that council will notice, projected to be way down from last year. And that really comes down to the fact that we have very limited inventory of available industrial land. And LEA may be in a position to sell potentially later this year, but probably more realistically to be selling in 2023. So that's why that number is way down. Costs related to land sales, of course, that's down because we're not expecting to do as many sales. And a lot of that number, honestly, is largely commissions that we're going to have to pay to real estate community. So if we're not selling land, we're not going to have those expenses. Meetings and luncheons, mileage, these are a couple items that basically are going up to largely back to pre-COVID situation. I guess we're being hopeful that things will get back to relative normalcy. In terms of advertising, that's the 315 account. Looking at decreasing that by about $20,000. When I say decreasing that, looking actually to reallocate that to specific dollars for film attraction, film promotion. So not really a decrease in the budget, more so a reallocation. So advertising in the past was over $60,000, cutting it now down to 40, and hoping to put the $20,000, if council approves, towards film and TV attraction. Publicity and public relations is down a little bit. Again, just because we're not expecting to do as much activity in terms of official openings and that sort of thing this year as compared to past years. Oxford Connection, this is kind of a reflection between Oxford Connection and SOMA trade shows, the next two accounts, getting back to kind of 2020 levels. So an increase from COVID years, but back to what it was. Purchase services, we're looking at a big increase. This is something we'd like to do with respect to our CIP program in particular. We'd like to be able to provide people with drawings, give them an idea of what we would like to see, what we potentially would fund in the downtown. I know that takes up a lot of Mr. Hammond's time, where there's a lot of back and forth about, will we support certain types of windows, certain types of stucco, can we have metal, that sort of thing. So a picture's worth $1,000. So if we are able to show them visually the sort of thing we're looking for, we think that will help that process go a little better than it has in the past. In terms of development activity, that just kind of gives an overview of land sales over last year. So land sales by value, you can see 2021 was down, and land sales by acreage, again, 2021 down, just because of the decline in inventory of available municipal industrial land. Development activity, so this is building permits. So this is both new companies and companies that are expanding. So it's hard to get a real trend, but it's very positive numbers. And when you're hitting numbers around $50 million during COVID, things are still pretty good on the industrial front. And then the next chart really just shows the square footage of what's added. And again, that's both expansions and new industry. So Brad and I like to mention that that's the long-term gain, because that square footage creates long-term taxes for the community forever. So always a good sign. And then the last thing, this is, I guess, really kind of the return on investment for the investment in the development department. So if we look at projects that the economic development department's worked on over the years, looked at 2021, taxes from the companies we worked with generated about $8.8 million in taxes that go to the city, and about 15 million in total taxes. So in our opinion, a pretty good return on investment. So with that, I'll close out and say thank you. And I guess I'll introduce Christy next, if that's how you want to handle it, Madam Chair, and then we can take questions at the end of that.
Yes, go ahead, Lynn. And
Okay.
introduce Christy.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Welcome, Christy.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm just loading my presentation. Okay, so everyone should be able to see that okay now? Okay. So as physician recruiter, my job is to recruit and retain family doctors so that everyone in the city of Woodstock has access to a family doctor. So this is a summary of my main job activities. I won't go through the whole list as they haven't changed a lot over the last couple of years. It is important to point out that a lot of the early work with a potential new doctor has always happened sort of virtually. A lot of back and forth initially over email or phone. So that still continues. And now with COVID, even more of that is happening online. We do, however, really try to get the potential new doctor here eventually to see our community and to tour the hospital. So that is still happening in most cases. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer until COVID permits or we're between waves, but that is still happening in most cases. The only other thing I'll point out, the last line, the CASPER conference is Canadian Association of Staff Physician Recruiters, because I get that question a lot. Okay, so here's the budget for 2022 versus last year. So after my contract on the first line, the next three line items represent my recruitment activities. So for marketing and PR, the number looks roughly the same. I am, however, planning to reduce the spend on some of my past activities, mostly due to COVID. However, I would also like to introduce some new stipends so the numbers balance out. For the stipends, I will be bringing a report to council at a later date to hopefully get approval for the use of those funds. For career fairs and conferences, this number is down. That's because a lot of our events are still happening virtually, when they're virtual, they are at a much lower cost. And unfortunately, some events haven't resumed yet. So there is a decrease in the budget there. For professional development, it's down a little bit just because the one professional recruiter conference that I do attend is also happening virtually this year. That takes us to the moving allowance. This was approved by council in July 2020, but because not all new physicians are eligible for this incentive, it has actually not been given out at all to date. So overall, the budget for 2022 is very similar to last year. So the data here is a little bit older now, but I put this in here to highlight that physician recruitment is important to Woodstock residents. So even those people in Woodstock who are fortunate enough to have a family doctor, I think they still might have some concern over what they'll do down the road. For example, if their doctor ends up retiring. And I think most people would say that they know someone, either a friend or a family member, who does not have a family doctor. So the results so far, I won't go all the way back through the history, but so far we've recruited 5 family physicians. We recruited 2 in 2021 to open new practices. Unfortunately, one of those physicians did not end up staying. I thought we would have a third physician at the end of last year. However, that was delayed slightly, and he actually just ended up opening his practice earlier this month. So far this year, we've had the 1 new physician, and I hope if everything goes as planned, we'll have at least 2 more later this year. So this is a question I get a lot. How many new doctors do we need? I estimate that we need 3 to 5 family physicians currently in Woodstock. This number, of course, depends on each new family doctor themselves and how many patients they agree to take on. If we look at the recent census data, we know that Woodstock has grown by roughly 5,500 people since 2016. That growth alone requires 3 to 4 new family physicians. And obviously that doesn't take into account anyone who already lived here in 2016 and did not have a family doctor at that time. So 3 to 5 estimated needed right now. Then if we look at our forecasted population growth, we will need at least 3 additional family doctors by 2026. I also estimate that we'll have up to 5 retirements over the next 5 years. So I think these are fairly conservative estimates for a couple of reasons. One, I used Woodstock statistics, so Woodstock population numbers, and there's no way to account for the fact that we may have residents from other part of the county, Ingersoll, Tillsonburg, for example, travel to Woodstock and enroll with a new physician here. So obviously, if that is happening in significant amounts, then we will actually require more physicians than what I'm estimating. The second thing to keep in mind is that the best data I have available only shows me people who do not have a physician anywhere. So if someone has moved here from the GTA or another part of Ontario, and they are still enrolled with their physician where they moved from, they do not show up in these numbers. However, I think it's reasonable to assume that they would prefer to have a local physician. We also know anecdotally from the physicians that we've had start new practices over the last few years, whenever they've set up shop and opened up an online wait list, we've seen that that wait list has filled within 48 hours of any media coverage. So there's definitely still high demand. Challenges, these remain largely the same. Most new graduates that I'm talking to, or any of my recruiter colleagues, they're hearing from them that they want to locum or work exclusively in a hospital rather than set up their own practice. Locum, for anyone who's not familiar with the term, that's a physician that is hired by another physician to fill in for them when they're on vacation or if they're on a maternity leave or some kind of extended leave. So then we have a small pool of physicians or new graduates that are actually willing to take on a family practice. Of those physicians, we're finding that most of them would prefer to take over an established or an existing practice rather than start from scratch. So this is needed as well. As I said, I do anticipate retirements in our community in the coming years. However, this doesn't help with all the population growth we've had and all the new people that are moving here looking for a family doctor. The other challenge we have is that the province does give incentives to physicians to help start their practices in other more rural or remote parts of Ontario. These range from 80 to 120,000, but because Woodstock is not considered, we're not eligible, or a doctor establishing a practice here is not eligible for these grants, they would not receive that. So some communities have started offering their own incentives, either in addition or instead of what the province offers. So I've shown a couple of examples here with St. Thomas and Tillsonburg. I won't read all the details. It's basically roughly $30,000 for a 4 or 5 year commitment to help them with their startup costs. And then depending on the community, they might add some other things such as a moving allowance or some free rent for half a year. These are just a couple of examples that are close to home, but there are lots of other examples within the province. I know the Brighton, Trenton area offers around 80 to 100,000 for new physicians. And you might have seen in the news just in the past month or so that Kingston has also started offering 100,000 for new doctors. So in Woodstock, I think we've started off very conservatively with a $5,000 moving allowance. I'm realizing that this is something we'll probably have to increase in order to stay competitive. So to that end, there will be a proposed amendment to the community improvement plan that will be coming to council in the next month or two. Okay, thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And we'll go back to page 87 and 89 for Mr. Magyar, and then we'll continue and you can ask questions of Ms. Hans. So Len, would you like to go ahead with any questions on page 87 for Len? Councillor Petter?
Through Madam Chair to Len, who thought he was off the hook, but he's not. I have a stupid question for you. Do you or Brad use drones in any of your promotions or advertising? And if you do, where do you put it in your budget?
Madam Chair, through to Councillor Petter, we have looked at some options for drones in the past, and if we did it, it would typically come out of our 315 out of our advertising account typically. We haven't, we wanted to do one actually, I think it was a couple years ago now in the Bison Park area when we started to get a lot of sales and there was a lot of development activity, because what seems to happen in our business, not just here, but I think everywhere, is when people see stuff being built and stuff going on, all of a sudden that spurs the inquiry for the next piece of land. You know, can we get that? Because we want to do something. And so that was the intent. But honestly, the land sold so quickly that it really wasn't even needed. But we may look at something with respect to Allier Farm. That right now is what's generating the most interest. It's got a bit of a challenge in terms of the servicing, because it looks like some of the servicing won't get completed until next year. But there may be some options there. But as I mentioned earlier, the demand is well over 600 acres. So I don't know how much more demand we need. But it may be something we look at, because particularly when we're dealing with international clients, if we mention the 401, 403, it doesn't have the cachet that it really should have. But if we could show them, particularly with a drone, which I realize comes with some technical challenges because you're flying near the 401, but it could really help tip the scales for some of those international clients, because it gives them better understanding of how important the 401, 403 is in terms of movements of goods and also employees, because that's a big challenge now, as well as finding employees. But we talk about our labor market being anywhere within largely an hour of Woodstock.
Great, thanks, Len.
Councillor Schadenberg?
Yeah, from the chair through to Len Magyar, I guess more just of a compliment than anything else. You talk about come to the crossroads lots, but Woodstock has certainly become a growth area as far as a lot of our commercial enterprises. And I think you and Brad Hammond have done a lot of terrific work, not only in retention, but encouraging companies to even expand in the city of Woodstock, like Soprema that we had talked about late last year, and Day and Ross is a massive facility being built on Township Road 4 right now. So transportation seems to be the real hub of our area as well, does it not? With the crossroads 401, 403. So I really want to congratulate you on reacting quickly, and I should point out as well that Len probably gets annoyed every time I take a picture of something and send it to him and sort of saying, Len, what do you know about this building? What's the latest here? So I'm not sure others on council do the same thing.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Accioni?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to Len. I know you mentioned the purchase services line, the CIP program. I guess I just don't really understand how that's a purchase service. So is that a different company we hire in then to come in and do that?
Madam Chair, through to Councillor Accioni. Yeah, the plan is to hire a firm to do a number of drawings for us. So that's why it falls under the purchase services account. We did something, I would say, similar a number of years ago, but it didn't seem to have the impact that we were hoping for. But this really is meant to give people an idea of, because I find with people who run businesses, sometimes they're great at running the business, but when we talk about the image or the outside image of the building or how they could build, in some cases they're a little bit of a fish out of water. They know what they're doing in terms of their business, but that's quite often a little bit new or a new project. So anything that we can do to kind of help them to say, maybe here's some options you should look at, if we can provide them with some drawings that says, this is the type of thing, it maybe leads them in the right way and maybe makes the process a little quicker, because there's a lot of people we deal with that they go back and forth a lot because they're looking at, say, a stucco option versus a steel option. And there's certain things we won't fund anyways. But if we can show them up front that this is what we're looking for, say a brick style front, a certain type of window, a certain type of lighting, it maybe creates a theme, but it also gives them an idea of, okay, let's just do that and make it better for my own business. So it's really, in my opinion, more of a sales tool than we've had in the past. It's worked pretty well. Mr. Hammond does, I think, a fantastic job in terms of the back and forth with clients. But I think if we can go that next step, we can handhold, but it would be specifically somebody doing the drawings, somebody specifically from that field. So again, that's why it's way up.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Any other questions for Lynn on page 87 or 89? Thank you. Ms. Hans, on page 88, are there any questions for her? Not seeing any, so thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
And now I'll call on Mr. McNamara from the Small Business Center.
Good evening, councillors and Madam Chair. It's great to be here, actually. This is an exciting time at the Small Business Center, and I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation with you. Hopefully it's not too long. Can everyone see that?
Yeah, we have it.
Perfect. So, as you know, I'm relatively new to this role, 3 weeks, but it is exciting times here at the Small Business Center. So I want to briefly go over what we've been doing in supporting business in the community, what our outreach looks like, and hopefully what the year ahead is going to look like as well. One of the really essential elements of our core mandate is to offer grants to local businesses where possible. And one of those grants is the Starter Company Plus grant, and it's offered by the Ontario government, and it provides adults 18 and over with the resources and knowledge they need to start and grow their own business. And it offers, through our office, training and business skill development, advice, mentorship, not just from us, but also from local business leaders and industry professionals where we can connect people. And it awards them a grant of up to $5,000. And these are just some of the people that we were able to help here in Woodstock this year. We also have another grant called Summer Company, and it's geared towards students aged 15 to 29, and it provides startup money to kick off new summer businesses, as well as offer that same advice and mentorship from local business leaders to help the businesses get up and running. The businesses have to start in that May to July time period and run through to Labor Day. And they can actually choose to keep running. And we've had a few over the years that have kept on running and are now in their third or fourth year. And to start, the applicants get $1,500 up front. And then upon completion of the program, they get an additional $1,500. So the funding for each a successful candidate is actually $3,000. And here are some of the people that we helped coach, mentor, and get businesses up and running in 2021. And at last report, the gross revenue combined was about $12,000, which is really good for student small business startups. Here's some of our reach and scope. So at year end, we engaged 853 unique clients. We supported 636 of them who were either existing or conceptual businesses, and we actually helped 217 launch as business startups. In total, we conducted 1,947 new or repeat meetings, and any interaction with a client over 30 minutes is considered a unique engagement. And the breakdown specific to municipality, Woodstock had 376 unique clients, which constitutes about 44% of total clients that we saw in 2021. We engaged in some regional partnerships. We engaged with the Brantford Small Business Center along with the London Small Business Center to create the Food Business Accelerator program. This is for anybody looking to engage in food services. I think there's a lot of ambiguity. The rules are very, very strict, and a lot of people are operating businesses without knowing what those are. So the Food Business Accelerator was a huge success. We've also engaged in a program for a couple of years now called Digital Main Street, and it's a joint venture with the Ontario BIA Association, where Brenda Tate in our office goes out into the community and engages small businesses that are already existing businesses that need to transform from maybe bricks and mortar or a home run based business into a more digital based business, which has been really, really invaluable throughout COVID because there were a lot of people who didn't know how to proceed forward. And so in conjunction with that, we've also been able to engage people while we're talking about Digital Main Street. We're able to advise them and let them know about the services and the benefits of dealing with the Small Business Center at the same time. So it's afforded us the opportunity to go out and promote Woodstock throughout the region and the province as well, because we've stayed entirely open and operational where the vast majority of small business centers have been closed to the general public. We've been able to meet with people digitally, over the phone, and been able to correspond and provide resources in any way that we can. We've also engaged in a lot of community partnerships. So, you know, we're a really, really proud member of Oxford County. So as such, we've reached out to and we work with all 5 chambers, all 4 BIAs, agencies like Community Futures, Tourism Oxford, Rural Oxford Economic Development, and Community Employment Services. And as a result of COVID, we've also worked closely with Southwestern Public Health. And of course, we work well with Oxford Connection as well. One of the things that we developed this year as well, which has shown really great dividends, is we've introduced something called SBC Live. And what started as a small recovery initiative, partially funded by the Ontario government, has now become a really important community outreach project that we've engaged in. And it's allowed us yet again to get out of the office. Rather than have people find us and seek us out, we're actually going out and meeting with them. And that's expanded our relationships across the county. It is basically on-site visits 4 days a week that were conducted from July to November. And we work with community partners and we engage municipalities to find out what specific needs are, because it's not just urban, it's not just rural, the needs change business to business, municipality to municipality. And as such, we ended up engaging with 237 businesses right through until the end of the project on November the 30th. And in talking to people in the community, not just waiting for them to come to us, but in actually talking to them, we're getting feedback from them. How can we do things better? How can we be better as a small business center? And the message that has come out of this that we've been able to take away is, as business owners, you're not alone. Make us your first call. We're here to help you. So that's been really invaluable for us to be able to move forward and speak to people, but also be able to listen, which is something that we haven't done a lot of in the past. We've been very dictatorial. A really exciting project that we also engaged in was the At Your Crossroads project. The office was able to, in partnership with all of the agencies listed below, secure a $355,000 grant from Employment Ontario. And we were able to develop curriculum and run the program, which started in April of 2021. And as Len had alluded to earlier, is starting to wrap up and wind down. And it's really designed to encourage the unemployed or underemployed to consider a career in the skilled trades. We had 3 different learning cohorts, and each cohort had an 8-week program focusing on career exploration and the skilled trades. The City of Woodstock took the lead. We helped facilitate along with 4 other employment training partners. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, I suppose, we had over 500 inquiries that resulted in 59 program participants. So it's been very, very exciting. Speaking to the funds committed for 2021, when the Small Business Center approached council last year, a lot of that was tied up in some rather large projects. Engage Oxford is a website that was developed as a business directory. Bridges to Better Business is our annual business showcase, which we typically do during Small Business Week in October. Of course, the At the Crossroads component that I just referenced, the Food Business Accelerator, software and subscriptions, marketing, training, and travel. Now, in looking at the allocated funds that were committed and used, there's an awful lot going on. And one of the things that we've noticed is that the Small Business Center committed itself in 2021 to an awful lot of things that it couldn't necessarily deliver on all the time. So our focus, my focus anyways, moving forward, is we need to get back to basics. We need to get back to our core mandate and do what we do well and not spread ourselves too thin. So I think this quote's fairly applicable to the way that we view 2022 moving forward. How does this affect our budget request? We've tapered it. We want to focus more on the core mandate. We want to continue our SBC live site visits. We want to enhance those site visits by doing SBC live videos. We want to be able to further enhance the experience of local businesses by being able to help create videos, vignettes, and marketing material that they can use and that we can showcase through our social media as well as theirs. We're hopeful, as we've already seen in some of the other presentations, that COVID is going to maybe ease up and allow us to get back to doing in-person events. Our networking with purpose events are always extremely, extremely successful. We'd like to see a return to an in-person Bridges event, but of course, if that's not possible, what we did last year is we created a website that was live for the full Canada Small Business Week, showcasing a number of different workshops and seminars that help small business owners in areas that maybe we don't talk about enough, and we were able to provide that to them. So we do have a contingency if that doesn't happen, but special events are going to be really important. Obviously, software and subscriptions, technology is key. Our travel is going to be a little bit more, our marketing is going to be a little bit more, because we want to go out there and get back to our core values and really promote ourselves, because we want to live by our new motto, make us your first call, we're here for you. And of course, staff training is really, really important. And at the end of the day, the request is about 15% of our total operations, marketing, and service delivery budget on an annualized basis. So that's my presentation. I'm more than willing to take questions.
Thank you, Sean, for this. I will go through the pages now, pages 90 to 92. Are there any questions through Sean in those pages? On page 90 or 92 or 93? I guess not 93, 92 and 91. Okay, thank you, Sean. I guess there's nothing more. You did a great presentation and we'll move on. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So our next one is Chris Grattan, our information technology.
Thank you, Madam Chair and councillors. Just bear with me. All right. So I just want to do a quick year in review before we get into the budgetary portion of it, just to kind of give everybody a kind of feel as to what we were able to accomplish with reduction of staff, the pandemic, and all of the moving pieces that really put us in a situation where we had lots of work to get done, but we really didn't get a chance to do it in a correct path, so to speak. So this is just a handful of the things that we did get done. This is not an inclusive list by any means, but they are some really big components. I started back in 2020, and since then we've accomplished several big things. Complete network refresh, citywide phone systems, increased our capabilities on communication and collaboration. The move to 365 and cloud entities to allow us to have better collaboration and to share information. The ability to allow our workers to work remotely, two-factor authentication, a disaster recovery site that's fully functional. Really, there's a bunch of other things on here, and I don't want to read it line by line, but there is just an enormous amount of work that we were able to accomplish. Going forward in 2022, some of these projects do cross over, but most importantly, there's 4 accounts within IT that, as you can see from the pages 15 and 16, do have slight increases, and they're a result of some things that we can control and some things that we can't. Out of one of the accounts, our Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, which is an agreement that gives us all of our licensing citywide on a 3-year term, is coming for renewal. The renewal cost, unfortunately, this year, because of the pandemic and pushing global prices up due to remote work and support and the cloud compute platform that has expanded, the costs have been forced down to the customers. It is almost double what we paid previously over our last 3-year term. And unfortunately, it's one of these things that we need to pay for regardless. The next is our phone system. We switched from a legacy application that was roughly 20 years old, and we moved into more of a collaborative suite that gives us the capabilities for our phones to follow us. It allows us to go to our mobile device, allows us to work on our laptops, and it also allows, one of the big advantages is our reception to work from their couch if they have to, depending on the work environment based off the pandemic. There is a legacy piece of it that is still lingering for another year, and that's in our emergency dispatch center. It will be replaced going forward, and we won't be paying for that cost going forward in the future. The other piece within our phone system that is quite critical, which we will see a reduction in over the next year, is by moving to this phone system, we've jumped over to the SIP technology, basically using the internet to route our phone calls. This will get rid of the traditional landlines that we have to each of our facilities. We're collecting those right now, and we should see some cost savings in the next 4 to 6 months by reducing and getting rid of those lines. Another budgetary item where you're going to see cost increase is the redevelopment of our shared services. Prior to 2019, we did have a platform where we were able to share information freely amongst interdepartments. As a result of 2019 and working forward to where we are today, those platforms are no longer available. And now that we're in a position, we want to try and roll it out again to give that flexibility and collaborative working environment for all people within the city. And then the last line item, which is one again that is non-controllable, it's security. And this security goes all the way from technology, it goes to employee security awareness. This will be a reoccurring mainstay in my budget year after year. This is one of those things that you need to contribute to annually to continue to layer as well as educate our people. So moving forward, here are some of the things that we want to tackle within 2022. Some carryover projects from 2021. We've recently deployed Cloud Permit, which is an electronic method of us to submit building permits. It's improved efficiencies. Hotspot's going to be another product that we're currently looking at right now, which is bylaw and parking enforcement. HRIS system, you, the council, and Madam Chair are well aware of what this is, as we brought it to council a week ago. It is the funding model from the modernization fund that allows us to improve our work stream from HR straight through to payroll. It's that redevelopment of that life cycle. Security network endpoints, users and education. This is a continual theme that you'll see throughout any one of the budgets or presentations that I do. Disaster recovery, now that we have a build out, we're going to be using it and testing it on a regular cadence to make sure that it gives us the output which we're expecting. As I mentioned before, with the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, 365 rollout for the entire city. Right now we have about a third of the city. That being said, too, one thing to note is out of the base of users within our city, the amount of employees that are now starting to utilize technology because we're doing online training, because we're doing security awareness, because we're doing things of this nature is growing rapidly. And with that rapid adoption of technology becomes that many more people for us to support for the city. We're going to be leaning towards more of auditing techniques to pull information to track down how things are accessed, why are they accessed, who accessed them, and things of that nature, so that we can nip things in the bud before they can become issues. One of the biggest pieces for IT especially, which unfortunately nobody else sees but us, is network visualization. This will give us a real picture in real time of everything and basically indicate to us if there's an issue before anybody even realizes there's an issue. And this could be things not related to cyber. It could be things like, why is this connection to this slow? Why am I not able to do this? We'll be able to see it, identify it, and remedy it before it becomes an issue. And then another big project, which you're all aware of as well, is the complete conversion and redevelopment of our city chambers. Currently, our city chambers doesn't have the capabilities to do the hybrid meeting sets that we're currently used to now over the last 2 years. It'll give us the ability to host an in-person and provide a conduit for people who may be remote who do want to join the meeting, and then be able to share information amongst everybody virtually and in person. So again, this is not an inclusive list. This is really just a high level of the things that we want to get done. There's many more items, obviously, and there's also the day-to-day stuff that gets in the way of things. But this is just a quick snapshot into what we're looking at, as well as why some of the budgetary items are higher than you would expect. And with that, I am open to questions.
Thank you, Chris. So we'll turn to page 15, and the totals are on page 16. So anything on page 15 to ask? Councillor Schadenberg.
Thanks a lot, Madam Chair. Through to Mr. Grattan. 2021 revenue budget line for software and maintenance is 130,970. You're projecting 320,530. That's quite an increase for 2022. And I know you described a lot of things that will be or could be happening in 2022. Describe why that goes up by 189,000.
Through the Madam Chair to Councillor Schadenberg, yeah, that line item is part and parcel to the EA agreement renewal portion that has more than doubled going forward as of this October. To give you an understanding of rough numbers, we were on a 3-year contract, roughly 60,000 per year. Now we're going to be in a 3-year contract with over 100,000 per year. This is the cost of doing business with Microsoft, and we have to basically succumb to it because we leverage majority of their service offerings. The other components that contribute to this too are software components that we need to build into our everydays to provide us with another layer of security and visibility.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you, Chris. I know we all depend on you for our IT. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you kindly.
And we'll move on now to Mr. Dahan for the engineering department and building and bylaw and parking and transit and all those good things you're responsible for. So we'll start out with engineering department on page 32 to 34.
Thank you, Your Worship. and counselors. I'm assuming right now you can see my screen. All right, great. Yeah, so this evening I'm going to present to you the operating budget for the engineering department for 2022. The Office of the City Engineer is comprised of the building department, the engineering department, bylaw, parking, transit, and paratransit. And I'm going to be going through my presentation, and afterwards we'll follow the pages as outlined in the book, in the budget book. So building department for 2021, year in review. We hired a new deputy chief building official. That was a new position that was created last year. The building department converted to the cloud permit software to enable electronic submittals. There was a construction value of about 195 million compared to 242 in 2020. And although the dollar value seems a little bit lower, I can assure you that we are still quite busy. And yeah, there was about 496 residential units compared to 522 in 2020. 2022 objectives for the building department. We want to continue to get to 100% conversion of all electronic files and permitting, as well as we're currently working on and hope to complete a development charges study and implement a new development charges fee bylaw before the end of the year. So some of the numbers that you'll see in the book, these are high level, more details in the book for you. For revenue, we're showing a permit value the same as last year of 847,000. We haven't changed that. For expenses, we're showing 142,000 for other revenue. We're showing 142,000, and that's increasing by 149,000 to 291. And then the expenditures are basically, since the building department is required by law to be a net zero department, the expenses are the same as the revenue, so $988,000, and that's the difference in there. Is for the revenue is the difference of what we may pull from the reserve in order to zero the account at the end of the year. So in engineering, 2021 year in review, we hired an asset manager to help us with our asset management program. We completed the EA for the intersection of Pattullo Avenue and Highway 59, or it's 99% completed. And we've completed approximately $6 million of construction projects. In 2022, we hope to complete the EA for the servicing of the lands east of Toyota or east of the 401. We hope to present an updated asset management plan to the council later on this year, as well as we're dealing with and need to implement new procedures to deal with the excess soil regulation. Notable changes in the budget, you'll see. We've relocated some accounts from other departments, such as property clearance from building and water inspection from the water department, as well as some full-time wages, you'll see, have been moved from some capital projects back into the full-time wages account in the engineering department. Equipment repairs up due to planned calibration of survey equipment, and the new equipment account is also up due to replacement of some obsolete equipment. So a high level view of the numbers for revenue for engineering. Last year we had $486,000. This year we're hoping to get $494,000, which is an increase of $8,000 or 1.6%. Most of that is the transfer from the property clearances from the building department to the engineering department. For expenditures for engineering, we've gone from 1.7 or basically $1.8 million to just under $2 million, which is an increase of 11.1%. Streetlights and traffic lights was last year at 762, this year at 757, so down $5,000, which is just under or just over a 0.5% drop. And then the other miscellaneous items in the budget, we've gone from $85,000 a year to $88,000. Which is an increase of $3,000 or 3.3%. So net result for the bill, it's for the engineering department is a net increase of 189,000 or 8.8%. Additions to base budget that staff is asking council to consider this year is we're hoping to put another engineer on staff. We would call this position Development and Special Projects Engineer. This position is to assist with the volume of applications and non-road reconstruction projects. The volume of the applications requiring engineering review have grown 60% in the last 5 years, and staff is having a hard time and actually been unable to meet the mandated review times due to the volume of work. The city has also grown 30% since 2005, and the growth in development requires planning, engineering, resulting in more secondary studies, EAs, and other non-road related reconstruction projects. For instance, like right now, we have the LEA farm under construction that's taking a fair bit of our staff time. In a few years, we'll be working on construction of extending utilities out to the east of 401. That's, another construction project right there. The estimated cost for this position is 150,000, and that includes benefits. That's a per year cost. For bylaw, 2021 year in review, we had about 1,300 concerns and complaints that were addressed, which is a little up from the 1,200 we received in 2020, and almost 2,100 tickets were issued. It was the first year we did full enforcement of winter sidewalk, the winter sidewalk bylaw. And we staggered the shifts working so that there was extended hours of bylaw personnel during the summer. In 2022, we hope to update the sign bylaw and the parks bylaw, investigate administrative penalties to streamline appeals and guarantee payment. And we also want to implement parking software and cloud permit software, which will receive and track bylaw complaints electronically. You'll see that in the budget that there's an increase. Council may remember approving a grant application with a modernization grant, and part of that was for parking software. So the money showing up in the budget this year, and but part of half that cost is being offset by the grant. So notable changes in the budget. We've brought a lot of the numbers back to pre-COVID rates, at least for revenue. We've budgeted in an additional 30,000 for downtown security, and that's per the motion approved by City Council a month or so ago. And you'll notice this is in bylaw as well as I think probably most departments. A lot of the employee incidentals such as CBP, EI, insurance, et cetera, are high, and there's unfortunately nothing we can really do about that. Those are out of our control. So high level for the bylaw department revenue, $2,000 in 2021, and we're hoping to get that up to $6,000 in 2022 for a $4,000 increase. Expenditures, last year we budgeted $277,000, and this year we're bringing the budget up to $218,000, which is an increase of $41,000. Net result for the department is an increase of $37,000 or 13.3%. And as I mentioned, a lot of that is due to the new parking software that was previously approved because of the grant. Addition to base budget that we're looking for in bylaw is we're hoping to increase bylaw enforcement, make a bylaw enforcement supervisor. This would be a promotion of an existing staff, and this position would be responsible for overseeing contracted downtown security. It would be located in the downtown area. It would be stationed downtown instead of on James Street where we're located, and basically would be spending full time on issues in the downtown area, downtown core. The estimated cost for that new position is $7,000 a year. Another addition that we're asking for is an additional bylaw officer. If the bylaw supervisor promotion is approved, we need to add another bylaw officer to the staff in order to keep the existing levels of service throughout the city, the same as they currently are. We're also hoping that the additional bylaw officer would allow more hours of coverage by staggering the shifts more for the officers. And we be probably concentrating more on parking enforcement in the residential areas. The cost for this position would be approximately $88,000, including benefits per year, plus the capital cost of a vehicle and operating cost of the vehicle. Another addition for bylaw for council's consideration for next year this year is downtown security. Council already approved $30,000 or some funds, and we put in $30,000 in the base budget already. But depending on what council decides how they want to proceed, what they want to do long term, and so we've put in we're estimating right now about $170,000 per year, and this would be for 2 security guards in the downtown core for 40 hours per week, plus 1 overnight guard for 12 hours a night, 7 days a week. Coverages of 8 months, so that's outside the $30,000 that we've already stuck in the base budget. If council wants, the coverage can be scaled to whatever. If council decides that 170,000 is too high or too little, we can scale that coverage according to whatever amount council does decide that they feel comfortable with approving. Parking accounts. Notable change in budget is the revenue of $16,000 from the Ontario Modernization Grant. The expense of the parking software, which is partially funded by the Ontario Modernization Grant. And the software will streamline enforcement and provide users another payment method. Instead of having to shuffle around for a toonie to put in the machine, people will be able to download an app and pay for the parking right on their phone. So again, for the numbers here, revenue 2021 we had 116,000. Next year we're hoping to get 132,000, which is an increase of 17,000. Again, this is more to get it again to the pre-COVID rates. So that's an increase of 14.3%. Administration costs last year were 104,000. This year we're 109. And then the rest of it, which is basically operation and maintenance and expenses, 57,000 in 2021, 84,000 expected in 2022, for an increase of $27,000. Net increase for the department is 36.2, and I need to apologize because I think I mentioned the parking software when I was talking about bylaw. It's in the parking budget, not the bylaw, sorry. So I have to apologize about that. I apparently got a little ahead of myself. Transit, 2021 year in review. Transit had a big year this year. You probably all know that. We launched 7 new routes, completely new routes, after years of talking about it and studying it. That came into play in August, and it went pretty smoothly. We're now pretty much servicing the whole city. We're servicing 100% of all the residential areas, and we've actually managed to add in service to some of the industrial areas also. The riderships are slowly climbing back to pre-COVID rates. They're currently about 2/3 of what they were before 2020, which is still down, but when you compare to a lot of other municipalities, it's actually above what some of the other municipalities are experiencing. And I like to think, and I hope that it's because of the new routes. I hope that people are finding them more useful, and that's why our ridership is bouncing back a little faster than some other municipalities. 2022 objectives. We hope to review and improve the advertising program to increase revenues, as well as improve driver retention. Notable change in the budget. Unfortunately, revenues were cut due to the absence of the Ontario Safe Restart funding program. So that's left a gap in revenues there. The wages and equipment rates are up due to the addition of the 7th route. We're not up to 17 yet. That was expected, of course. Everybody knew you don't add a 7th, we all knew that was going to happen. And then there was also a fairly significant increase in insurance, which is also contributing to the equipment the increase in the equipment rates. So in terms of the actual high level numbers, revenue fares, we're hoping to go from $379,000 to $400,000 in fares. And that's, again, not quite the pre-COVID rates, but we're hoping to slowly climb up again more this year. Miscellaneous revenues dropping from 1.1 million down to 658,000. And again, that's because of the Ontario grant that's no longer there. So that's a drop of 41%. Expenditures and operations, we were at 2.7 million, or just over 2.7 million. Now we're going to be at 2.743 million, an increase of 41,000 or 1.5%. And administration is jumping from 721,000 to 802,000 or $80,000. Net result is that transit costs are projected to go up just over $500,000 or 29%. Additions to base budget for transit. Council may remember we brought this one to council last year also. We're looking to increase the transit fares. We're looking at a quarter increase in cash fares, which would correspond to a corresponding increase to the passes. So handy rides would be $27.50. The monthly pass is $53, and the adult pass is at $66. The last increase was in 2016. This is a 10% increase to help offset the costs of the last 2 years, and also follows the recommendations of the 2015 operational review of the Woodstock transit system that was completed. We're hoping that this increase would result in a $25,000 increase in revenue. That is using COVID transit ridership numbers. Last year, I don't know if you remember, last year, 2 years ago when it was presented, we were hoping we'd be more like 50,000. So, hey, if we get really lucky and the ridership goes up, that would increase also. Transit. Paratransit. Okay, paratransit was a pretty status quo year, so I just have the numbers being presented this year. Revenue going from 90,000 to 45,000. This is a COVID reaction, and numbers have not actually, unlike conventional transit, numbers have not bounced back like they have in paratransit. So that's kind of why we're adjusting the anticipated revenue there. Operation costs from 821, we're dropping them 71,000 to 750. That's partially in response to the anticipated drop or continued drop in ridership, and the administration costs pretty much staying the same with a $3,000 increase. Net result in paratransit is an increase of $23,000 or 3%. Notable changes in the budget for paratransit. We've revised the contracted services to reflect historical costs, and that also reflects the anticipated ridership costs. So that is pretty much my presentation for the evening, and I guess if you have any questions.
Thank you. So we will start on page 32. Are there any questions on page 32, 33, or 34? Okay. Seeing none. Oh, sorry.
I think Mark had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did have a question, Connie.
Okay.
Yeah, from our chair through to Mr. DeHaan. I noticed that the year-to-date in 2021 for vacation pay was 55,000. The budget was 2690. What was specifically was the reason why that went over budget and has a projected lower number again for 2022?
Through Madam Chair, through the councillor, which
page 32. Sorry,
page 32. Okay, and okay.
Engineering part-time wages.
Yes, that is because usually when we do the budget, we throw most of the wages, if not all the wages, in the full-time wages. all the costs and the full-time wages, it's not until people actually take vacation that those numbers are actually transferred over to the actual vacation account is what. So that's why you'll see that the actual year to date for full-time wages doesn't match the budget account either for 20,
Okay. Any other questions on those pages, 32, 33, or 34? Okay, we'll go to page 26 and 27, which is for the building. Are there any questions on those pages? Okay, we'll move on to bylaws, which is page 35 and 36. Sorry, Councillor Talbot, is that for bylaws or was that for? Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, through to Harold. I was overnight parking passes in the revenue. We'd budgeted 25, was 969, and you're only budgeting 1,000. Is there any reason for the decline in the overnight passes? Because I mean, there seems to be a lot of cars in a lot of areas.
Sorry, we're bylaw enforcement you're under or parking?
I had mentioned.
I'm sorry, I'm under parking. My apologies.
That's okay. We'll get to that and we'll just do the bylaw first. And that's pages 35 and 36. Any questions there? Don't see any, so we'll move on to the parking. Go ahead, Councillor Talbot.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead on you there.
That's okay.
No problem.
I mean, because there's just so many cars, and I don't know if they're still parking on the street. They just don't bother. I can't say we haven't had a lot of snow events because we've had a lot recently.
Madam Chair, through the council person, yes, that actually is an account. We've been struggling. We have been working for years to lower the amount of people that we give overnight parking passes to. And I know we have been going out on regularly to enforce people who are breaking the overnight parking. So to the best of my knowledge, it means that actually, although you're seeing a lot of cars parked on the road during the day, they're not there during the night. So
Perfect.
that's,
I mean,
that
a decrease in that revenue then is a good thing.
correct. Yes. Yeah. That helps the snow plowing activities. Yeah.
Super, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions on page 44 or 45? Okay, move on to transit, page 46 and 48, through to 48. Page 46, any questions there? Or 47? Or 48? Okay. 48. Yes, Councillor Schadenberg.
Thanks, my chair, through to Mr. DeHaan. I guess the first thing would be to back to transit. And it's probably the same question I asked you last year. And that would be the comparison or the percentages between full-time wages and part-time wages for the drivers, especially when you talk about the need for retention. I would think, for example, if I was driving 24 hours a week, say, is my schedule, if somebody else offered me a full-time job somewhere else, I may just go. So the whole idea of retention and maybe having some more full-time drivers, especially with the 7th route, is there some advantage to that? Or is there a reason why the part-time wages are so much higher than the full-time wages?
Yeah, Madam Chair, through the council person, yes, we our staff is mostly made out of part-time drivers. That is true. We have about it varies a little bit. Usually about 20, 24 part-time drivers compared to 5 or 6 full-time drivers. But to be honest with you, that's just the way it works best for scheduling purposes. The problem with having more full-time drivers is you then have to create a break in the middle of their day an hour-long break in the middle of their day per regulation, so that they need a break from driving. And so because of that, because our driving day is 16 hours, for transit, it's really difficult. It's basically impossible to have two back-to-back drivers in our system. So what we do is we have one full-time driver, and then the rest of the day is covered by part-times. Because in order to have two full-time drivers, you would basically have to provide service for at least 18 hours a day, because you have to have those two lunch periods in.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, I guess just maybe a brief follow-up question, Connie, about the paratransit. I was going to have a question on page 49 from Mr. DeHaan.
Right.
Just a quick explanation to everybody how the subsidies work for the paratransit system and who operates the paratransit system in the city of Woodstock, because it really is a cash question about how much the expenditures we do have to lay out for that program.
Madam Chair, through the councillor, yes, as you're all aware, we contract out the provision of providing the service out to a contractor, Voyago. They provide the buses and the drivers and the service, and they also provide the dispatch services also. This allows basically our staff to be able to concentrate more on conventional, and to be honest, we found it was actually cheaper in the long run to have the contract out the service rather than having our own staff provide the service. Because it's such a small service and they had such a small fleet, we couldn't economically run the vehicles the way a larger company like Voyago, who honestly they provide the service for a number of cities. They're able to do it much more efficiently, much cheaper than we were able to.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Any other questions on the paratransit? Okay, we'll now go to Mr. Locke for the Public Works, Waste, Sewer, and Water. And we'll go to page 20 through to 25 first.
I'm going to share my screen. I have a presentation. So
go ahead.
Are you seeing my presentation?
Yes, we are.
Good evening, everyone. Through you, Madam Chair, and to members council. This is the Public Works presentation. Just going to give you a quick overview of everything in the Public Works area, and I'll touch on some highlights from 2021 and initiatives for 2022, and we'll look at some of the numbers. But before we get into the budget numbers and all of that, I do have some metrics that sorry, there we go, that I wanted to share with everybody first. So just in the network systems that we look after and maintain, we have 290 kilometers of water main. We have 249 kilometers of sanitary sewer pipe, 181 kilometers of storm sewer, and 296 kilometers of sidewalk, and 261 center lane kilometers of roads. So just a little bit of background on that. Moving on, next set of metrics here. So in the Public Works area, again, signs, we have around 5,700 signs. Of those, there is 3,500 regulatory. I'm not going to go through every number, but there is some information here for you. The Public Works sidewalks area, I think we talked about the curb face sidewalks and how much of a challenge they are. You can see the split there is around 60-40 between boulevard and curb face sidewalk. Just some pieces of our water system. We have around 17,000 services, around 1,400 hydrants, and just around 4,100 water mainline valves. So each one of the services would also have a valve. In the garbage, and I left it for last, in the curbside waste and recycling, you can see in the curbside bulk area, a number that is higher in 2020 than 2021. And I'll show you on the next slide the corresponding offsetting data for that. And I think it's due to the depot being closed. So in the next slide, you can see that in 2020, all of the numbers are down from the depot being closed. I think that precedes when I came on board, but I think they were doing the Enviro Depot by appointment only for a good portion of the year. Also, I'd note in these numbers that the 2018 numbers, the depot opened in June of that year, so they're only partial year. And I won't go through everything, but also EPS, styrofoam, and recycling were two programs that are offered up at the depot now, and they started in 2020. So there's only 2 years worth of data there. I think this is a great number to see how the value of the depot, and we have 42,333 vehicles that went through the depot in 2021. So we'll move on to the Public Works area year in review. And a lot of the things that I'm mentioning with the year in review are going to be similar for all four areas that we're looking at. You can see off to the right the budgeted maintenance programs that this area looks after. But the service levels maintained well, continued service challenges due to the COVID pandemic. You know, we had challenges with when you try to put a crew together, but you need to socially distance and you need to do all these things, and we're separating shifts and all those different little things. They all affect how fast, you know, they add time to all the processes. They add challenges. So all of that will be consistent throughout. We were working on a road maintenance contract renewal with the county, and that was put on hold until the service delivery review is complete. So I just wanted to note that. Delays in delivery of replacement equipment. I think we've talked about this a couple times on our meetings. Supply chain issues and just you know, delays in the availability of a lot of materials, I think are slowing down those. Compliments to the garage and Russ for keeping our fleet going. We've had some recruitment challenges. We're currently down 2 mechanics. So if there are any 310Ts and 310S mechanics out there that are looking for a place, this is a great place to work. So welcome some applications. We have an open posting for that. So just a plug there, sorry. And some of the initiatives that we're looking for in 2022, establishing SOPs for the public works functions. So we have some. I want to review them and make sure that we have everything in good stead. It helps us know that the staff and everybody's doing the work in the way that it needs to be done, and it's safe for everybody. And it's just a good document to have and review on a regular basis. Implementing a work management system to support all functions. You'll see that throughout again. Establishing work plans for all public works functions. So making sure that the plans are in place so that we know we can spend our budgets and do so effectively and efficiently. So on to the numbers. So in the revenue side of the budget for 0300, you can see we've went up. I'm just going to go through the totals for the most part, but you can see that we went up 22,000 there, or 1%. And in the expenditure side, you can see that it's a $230,000 increase. So that nets out at 208, or a 4.1% increase. And I'd say that there really isn't any. Maybe a little bit in the garage area. We did add a couple things there. A provision line for the hoists replacement, so that they are contributing to the reserve. So we've added some money into the budget on that line item, and you'll see that when we go through the sheets. I can point that out, but it's just able to. Their life is coming due, and we need to start contributing so that we can replace those when the time comes. Go on to waste again. Some continued service challenges, and one thing I do want to celebrate is that we've never canceled a waste collection day. I think I live in a neighboring community, and I've gone through a few this year, but we've never canceled one here. So that speaks to all the challenges that they encounter out on the roads, and being able to do that. I know it's very difficult. So proposed initiatives, again, changing the routes. That was in front of council just recently. So you know that, and that's due to the growth that we've seen in the city, and the ability for us to rebalance the routes and provide a level of service on any given day that's more consistent. So again, standard operating procedures. And one of the pieces of legislation that's going to affect us in the coming years is the food and organic policy changes. And so we'll be preparing for those this year, or at least looking at what we need to do for that change coming, and the implementation of a work management system. So then into the numbers, numbers for, oh, I'm going to slide behind. All right, there you go. So into the numbers for the waste side of things, you can see that there is a little bit of rounding here, so the numbers don't quite add up, but it's a county funded account, and the numbers on the revenue side, you can see it's gone up around 3.5%. 80,000 of the other source there is due to the commodity pricing, and an estimate of what we would get for our fiber and containers at market. And so we increased that by 80,000 there of that 87, and that's just to offset what we believe we're going to get at market for those commodities. Other than that, you can see that they pretty modest increases across all the accounts, and the offsetting expenditures with the revenue, so it nets out at zero, as it's a county funded account. On to the sanitary sewer. Sanitary sewer, again, continued service challenges due to the pandemic. I've been out there when the guys are doing a dig, and it's very difficult for them to socially distance, wear masks, be in the hole, all those kinds of challenges. So, they do a great job of trying to maintain those things. Again, county contract on this one is on hold due to the service delivery review, and hopefully we can get that resolved and move forward. So the proposed initiatives here, again, SOPs and work management system, and establishing the work plans for this area. And into the numbers, again, this is a county funded account, and we did reduce this account. Trends are that we weren't spending it as much, and this is why one of the initiatives is to get the work plans in place, that we know that we are spending the money that's given to us, and get a plan in place for that. So you can see that there's nothing really standing out here. It's offsetting and nets out at zero. So on to water. Continued service challenges again. At times we weren't able to go into people's homes, or if we were some challenges there. We had a DWQMS, which is the Drinking Water Quality Management Standard audit, and that was very successful. We had no non-conformances, and I think one opportunity for improvement that we're working on. The Ministry of Environment and Conservation and Parks drinking water audit was also successful, and again, the contract's on hold in this area. So the proposed initiatives for 2022 is continue the high level of service. I think that is evident by our two audits that the water area provides a great assurance of the quality of the system here to the residents in Woodstock. So we want to maintain that. We're going to define some levels of service for all functions. We're going to establish the work plans for all water system maintenance functions and implement the work management system to support all of that. Onto the, again, the county funded account. You can see that we did increase the revenues by 44,000 and others from other sources, 27,000, total of 70,000 or 3.8% change from last year. The maintenance, 39,000 change, repairs, 4,000, other 27, so 70. And again, these net out at zero, increase to the tax levy as it's a county delivered account. So then, so the three areas or three asks for additional budget are the work management administrator, which also comes with the work management software, any licensing costs, associated hardware. So the rationale here is we don't have a work management system, and the ability to be able to be organized, getting your programs out in a way that you're doing everything that you need to do, making sure that we deliver those in a way that is based on data-driven decisions, and being able to pull information out of the systems to see how we're doing. So being able to measure it all, and that'll take some time. We have to build the data in there, but those things certainly help us be more efficient and effective at doing all of our roles. So the impact to levy is 112,500. There is a capital piece in there for 5,000 for some of the equipment. So the second one is skilled labor 2 up at the Enviro Depot. And this role is just to support the activities at the depot. I think it's you can tell by the numbers that I showed you earlier how popular that service is, and this is just to support it so that this area can be functioning properly and make sure that we can maintain it, keep everything safe for the visitors and the staff up there. And then we have the recycling collection operator, which is funded from the county waste program again, and it supports the changes to the routes. It's the additional truck and operator, and that is a $75,000. Both of the last two are county funded, and yeah, so that takes me to our summary. And just looking at 2022 initiatives. So the overall one for the entire department is the work management system, work plans, and standard operating procedures. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Dan. So we'll start going through page by page on your presentation. So we're starting with page 20. Are there any questions on that one? I do have one question because someone visited here from out of town and they always look for that big flag, and it's not up there right now, but will it be up soon, or
I'm still trying to share my screen. Can you all see me? Sorry. Are you seeing my presentation still, or?
I'm seeing that. Yeah, I'm seeing the presentation. Yeah, can you get?
There we go. I'm looking at the wrong screen.
There you go.
Hey.
Fine.
Sorry about that.
Got it.
Yeah, so the flag it's somewhat weather dependent, and heavy winds, we can't have it up there. So I can certainly ask. I have not been here when it's gone back up. So I'd have to ask for that, but I would assume that once we're out of the winter high winds and, through that period of time, that it would go back up.
That's what I told them. So thank you on that. Any other questions on page 20? Councillor Accioni?
Actually, through the chair to Mr. Locke, this is more of a general question, and a resident actually stopped in to see me today and asked this, and I thought it was a great question. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you have an idea of how many new or how many more kilometers of road have been added here in the city in the last couple of years with sidewalks and everything else. We got talking about snow removal, and actually it was a compliment to how everybody is doing such a great job considering the growth of the city and everything else. So I don't want you to think this was a complaint, because it wasn't. But I thought it was a great question. Do you happen to know that information?
So that isn't, sorry, through you, Madam Chair.
Or Harold, I should be asking that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the GIS information we would have in engineering, certainly can pull that, but I don't have that at my fingertips.
Again, I'm not surprised, but thank you. I thought it was, well, yeah, it was a good question, that's all. And if I may, one more that it got talked after was water. With water usage and the growth of the city, are we going to have to look at another water tower, for example? Is there any threats to our water systems, et cetera, that you foresee in the foreseeable future?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's, I think, an engineering question.
As well?
Yeah, and the treatment is held currently by the county. So they would look at that and do all the background studies to make sure that we have all of the sufficient water supply sources in place so that we don't have a supply issue.
Again, we assume during our conversations that is all addressed and asked, but I said I would mention it because I know they're watching tonight. So, okay, thank you.
We'll go on with page 21. Councillor Talbot.
Sorry, the chair through to Dan. And also, I guess to Jerry, just to let you know, we had water report yesterday at County Council, and we're very fortunate. Our staff do an amazing job when it comes to water. They're, just as an example, because I have these facts written down from last night's meeting, 4,420 regulated bacteriological samples were collected. 2 samples were adverse, and they were resampled and cleared. So the county does an amazing job at providing drinking water to the community. So they're on top of it. So that's just a little update. But anyways, through to Dan.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. On page 21, vandalism costs. So you've got quite an increase there, and I'm just curious, can you explain what type of vandalism we're dealing with?
Sure. Through you, Madam Chair, to the councilor's question. It's just vandalism across town, all over, and the increase is somewhat due to trends and just how we would be able to get out there and handle it.
Now, are we talking like tagging or whatever they call it? I'm not sure. Is that basically what it is, like the spray painting, or is it other things? Are things being broken, things being stolen?
It's a bit of a catch-all for all of those things. So it is those things. It's also, downtown, sometimes there's garbage thrown all over the place, and just different, I can't come up with all of the different things, but it's kind of a catch-all for anything that we would consider vandalism.
Okay, any other questions on that page? 22, anything on 22? Page 23.
I just had a comment just back to the water. I just want to clarify the water staff, the city staff, not county staff, that do the great job. So just no, I don't want any confusion, because there's a bit of an issue going on, and our staff have done phenomenal work. So I just want to clarify that for the public.
Okay.
It's a joint effort.
Okay. Page 22, and Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, from Madam Chair through to Dan Locke. I guess I'm maybe on 23 here, but the storm sewer maintenance cost was well below budget for 2021, but you're still projecting pretty good numbers for 2022 at 40,160. Is that something to do with, is it related at all to pothole filling and stuff like that, or is it the actual the sewer maintenance, the lids and whatnot?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, that's the storm sewer maintenance. It's not related to pothole maintenance. But the storm sewer maintenance program here, you know, and those other, the two roles that we asked for, a lot of times when we have vacancies or we need to add people to other routes or do other things, we pull from this area. It seems to be the one area that gets, you know, pulled off of, staff pulled off of, and so it does suffer from that. So that's one of the reasons why I want to create a work plan for these areas so that we have established metrics that we want to accomplish each year so that we can do that. And that'll be based on the budget. So I didn't want to change the budget yet. I want to be given an opportunity to make the right maintenance program associated with the budget, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on that page? 23, 24, page 25. Okay, we'll move on now to the waste, which is on page 28 to 31. So is anything on page 28? Councillor Schadenberg.
First of all, through to the chair to Mr. Locke, just first of all, a comment and then a question. My comment is my garbage pickup day is currently, which is also obviously my recycling day, is Thursday. And I would like it to stay at Thursday. I'm a creature of habit that way. I don't want you to shift that on me, but I think things may change. But my question being, it looks like obviously we promote recycling as much as we want. There seems to be more of a market, as you were saying in your report, for things like fibers that maybe didn't exist 2 or 3 years ago. There's a bit of a rebound for recycling, and I think that's important to maybe double up and mention again, because we really want to promote the fact that we want everyone to recycle in the city of Woodstock, because when it's all said and done, it's a cost program, but it's a diversion from the landfill program, and that's the most important part about it.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the council's question, you can see in the revenue side on this page, the first line, that we increased it by 80,000, and that's a big piece of what you're talking about with the market value of the recycled materials. So we are seeing that we're getting a better price at market. So just to be respectful of that and make sure that things line up. And again, there is some volatility. It is markets. So anybody that monitors markets on a regular basis know they fluctuate quite a bit. So we will see where that falls out, but we thought it was appropriate based on the trending numbers to change that a little bit. And as for your comment on routes, everybody wants to keep the same one. We will do our best. I cannot guarantee that.
Okay, we'll move on, page 29. Any questions there? Page 30 and 31 are just the totals. So the next is sewers, page 37 and 38. Any questions on page 37 and 38? Okay, thank you. We'll move on now to the water, and I think there has been some discussion on that. But is there anything else on 39 through to 43? So page 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. Okay, looks like we're all good on there. Thank you for your all your information.
Thank you.
So the last but not least is the mayor and council, and that's on page 105, 106, and 107. 105, are there any questions on that page? 106, any questions? 107, any questions? Hearing none, I think that we've completed our budget review. So councilors are requested to forward their suggested amendments to council, the CAO, the clerk, and the Director of Administrative Services by March the 11th, 2022. Amendments can, of course, be brought forward on the council floor on March the 17th as well. The Police Service Board, the Public Library Board, and the Art Gallery Advisory Board will be presenting their budgets at the regular meeting of council being held on March 3rd. Final approval of the revenue budget is scheduled for the regular meeting of council March the 17th. I would like to thank all the staff for the presentations tonight, and you've all done an excellent job. So I ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Petter and second by Councillor Accioni, and we're all